What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a look at Foundation, which has a big update coming. It's not here yet, but it is in the pipeline, and they've been rapidly showing off some of the new mechanics, so I figured it was time to dive back on into the game and show it off once more. If you're a fan of city builders and you wanted to get nitty-gritty up in like the Bohemian medieval times, this may be a game to keep a weather eye out for. I like this game tremendously. I've streamed it on a lot of locations. I've covered it on a lot of occasions, and so I think the game is a lot of fun, and I always seem to come back to it. Because we've covered the beginning portion of the game on the last video or two that we did probably a year ago and like a year before that, I figured I'd bring you in a little bit later on into the game. This right here is a colony that is about 5 or 6 real-world hours long, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how the game functions and what I've got set up here in just a minute. But if you wanted to check out Foundation, it's currently in early access. You can go get that at the link down below. Aside from that, I also have a link to my Discord and my Twitch stream in case you wanted to hang out live down there in the fold. But let's get started. This is my village. This is probably about 6 hours worth of work. I've got my residential quarter down here where all of my villagers and my serfs and all my people are living at. I've got myself, this is my manor right here where I personally live. It's got a whole bunch of functions. It's got a bunch of rooms that are used for storing money. Because what's the point in building a giant 10-bedroom, 12-bath house unless you're going to fill every corner with just absolute opulence that you can just shine all over the people of your village. I even put some tasteful hedges out front. This thing is modular. It's custom. When you build one of these up, you actually decide how it's going to look from all the little parts. They basically snap together like little Legos. Over here, we've got a church. This is one of the fundamental needs of all the people in your town. They want to go to church once a week. And so this is my second church. I had to bulldoze the old one and build one that was like a double-wide church. Something a little bit more loud and rowdy so that we could fit a few more people up in here. So the double-wide church, it also has various parts that you can assign values to. You can ring the bells and you can customize what their timbre and what their tone is going to be so that when they go off and call people to prayer, you've got like your own custom music going off. Lots of cool little features in this game. But really what this game is it is a logistical game. This is a game all about production inputs and outputs. So let's talk about those. You can see up at the top of the screen, I've got my current financial situation. I've got my financial butcher's bill for the week. I've got my food, and I've got my wood, and my planks, and my stones, and my polished cobbles, my tools, all that kind of stuff on up in here, including up to weapons, because I do have a little military. You can see some of my little tin hat guards standing around right now. There is no combat in this game. You might be asking yourself, why do you need a military if there's no fighting in the game? It's because you're like a city-state. You're basically a neutral faction, and you loan your army to other factions to help them win or lose or deal with situations. So the clergy might say, hey, our monasteries have been getting attacked by, let's say, Vikings. If you send us 10 soldiers, we'll give you a bunch of favor and whatnot. And so that's basically what the soldiers do. You don't have to worry about bandit raids or anything else like that. They're mostly for kind of like a little time-based minigame, and you deploy them on out. Up here, really, really important stuff. I've got my food production. So we've got a little bit of like some wheat fields going on this side, which then get taken to the storehouse, and then they get taken to the mill, and then the mill will grind it on up into flour, which goes over here to the bakery and produces bread, which is basically like a refined product that gives people more happiness than just eating berries off the vine. I've also got some fisheries down here, so I've got a couple guys going out bringing in catches, sharks, sunfish, that kind of stuff, tuna, every single day so that we've got a little bit of protein in our diet, although they've been having trouble keeping up with demand lately. The people like fish very, very much. I may deploy like a third one down here just to get even more fish running, but that'll give him a long transit time to drop it off inside the storehouse, so I haven't really decided yet. We also have berry production over here. This entire area was really thick forest, and it took me a long time to get ready for this video and actually clear out all the forest with wood choppers. There's no default command to just tell them to chop down trees indiscriminately. You gotta put down these little lumber camps, and they'll actually chop away the trees, and it takes a lot of time. In fact, you can see I'm working on it over here. I'm actually leaving this as kind of like the Lord's land over here so that I have like a replenishable wood resource no matter what happens. But this down here is supposed to be cleared out so that I can use it for housing. You don't get to control where all these buildings are placed. You do get to control everything that has to do with the kingdom and everything that has to do with logistics, but when it comes to housing, the peasants just kind of build wherever they want as long as you designate that area as a residential zone. You've got different types of zones. You've got extraction zones, which actually, I've got one right here for the forest I was clearing out that I need to get rid of just to make everything a little bit more neat and tidy. We've also got like residential zones. People have various areas that they want to live in based on like how close they are to amenities and things of that nature. We've also got production zones over here. People don't like to live next to those because you've got like charcoal burners and you've got like sawdust in the air and all that kind of stuff, and they don't want to breathe it. It makes them unhappy. But extraction zones, we've got reforestation zones, we've got residential zones, and they kind of just populate naturally on their own as people need buildings. The buildings also upgrade. These are level 1 houses right here. These are level 2 houses. So as your people get more established and they get happier, they come in various types. So you've got newcomers, which are basically like the crappiest civilians, and then you've got serfs, which are like one step up. They need a few more things, but also they're like more productive. And then on top of that, you've got commoners, and you've got nobles and things like that. The game basically uses like an anode-style system, where as you give people the needs that they require and you fill up this happiness meter right here, they can be upgraded in their social class, and then their place will be taken by other people. And as you can see, actually, that house just upgraded right there. And as you have higher and higher class people, the houses go up to higher and higher tiers, as people have access to more things like linens and clothing and things of that nature. For right now in this current playthrough, I am actually just kind of waiting for the harvest to come in. We just got a little bit of immigration, and then I'm also waiting for my next month to roll over so that I can upgrade all of my villagers. We've only got like 7 days till the month rolls over. For whatever reason, I don't really understand why the mechanic works the way that it does. But basically, you can't like freely upgrade your villager's social class except for like the first 6 days of the month. I have no clue why it works like that. It feels like you should just be able to do that independently, but I assume that it has something to do with the way that the game is coded or how the game counts tick rates or something. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a designer. One of the things I've learned doing this job is that like when I critique a certain mechanic and I'm like, there's no reason for this to work like this, what will happen is it will actually turn out that there is definitely a reason for that mechanic to work like that, and it's usually something like hard-coded or just with the way the game functions. So I've been trying to ease off being like, why does this mechanic, it needs to change. Like, I've been trying to lean away from that kind of commentary. I will say this, I would like it a lot better if I could upgrade their social class whenever I wanted, but for now, we just gotta wait like another 4 or 5 days, and then we can upgrade a whole bunch of our normal villagers, our serfs, into commoners, because that's what we're waiting on. Why do I need commoners? Well, because the entire research system of the game requires it. So this entire game is basically a balance of powers. You have labor, you have the kingdom, which is basically like the regency, and then you have the clergy, which is the church. And you need to curry favor with each of these factions by... So you get these left-hand splendors by building things that particular social group likes, and then you also get influence, which is a currency that you spend to buy new buildings. And so what I want to get is I want to get access to... I'd like to get access to mines and things of that nature, but as of right now, I haven't really gotten that far, and in fact, in my 6 hours, 7 hours of playing, I haven't figured out exactly how to get a mine. As far as the game goes for things you can build, there are a good number of buildings, and they unlock with time. If you're wondering what you need to do in order to unlock a building, just mouse over the top of it, and it'll tell you. Most of it has to do with your population and the composition thereof. So you need like 10 serfs to get this. You need like 20 peasants to get this. You need like 30 commoners to get this. And so really, you should be hanging out, upgrading your people as much as possible. We do have a military mission that's been offered to us. My lord, things are boiling up between the realm and our neighbors. I personally don't know what it's all about, but the king is requesting your help. Of course, you will be rewarded according to your war effort. The road ahead might be with the uncertainty, so you had better be prepared. So it looks like it's an easy mission. It's far away. We get a gold reward, and we get some kind of common reward for helping out with it. We'll go ahead and send the troops. I don't see a reason not to. I don't know how many soldiers we need to have, but our budget is pretty good right now, so I'll add a few more soldiers so that we've got like 6 levies, basically, we can raise for the king. As of right now, my most recent task was I was setting up all these wheat farms over here because I felt like we just were not producing bread at a rate that I found to be acceptable. I was producing a lot of fish, but the fish seems to get eaten really rapidly now, and so I needed something else to kind of fill that void. I think they're like fishing out the area or something. I don't really know if that's even a mechanic that works like that. You also have the ability to set up trade lanes, and so you can go to the trade menu, and you have neighboring kingdoms that you can make friends with, and then you can set up resource trade routes. So right now I've got it set to sell all of my planks over 25. I've got it to buy tools since I don't have the means to buy that just yet. I could probably buy iron, actually, would be an okay idea. I don't know if any of our trade routes actively sells iron, though. It doesn't look like they sell iron, but in fact what I could do is I see an opportunity here. Let's go ahead and import some fish, and I'll show you how that works. So we'll say that if we don't have 35 fish, go ahead and buy fish until it reaches that value every time a trade caravan comes through. I think that sounds like an okay idea. We don't really have anything to unlock right now. I need to get a whole bunch of commoners, basically, in order to get us further on into the game. So we're going to have to wait that out. But let me make a cut right here until I can upgrade some guys, because we're not at that. Hey, never mind. I don't need to make a cut. It just popped. Let's go ahead and we will upgrade who we can upgrade. So the 50 guys are who we want to upgrade. So we'll go ahead and do that. I only have like 1,000 gold, so I'm not going to be able to upgrade all of them. But we can upgrade some of them. So let's make this place a little bit more lived in. So there we go. That's enough promotions for right now. We got ourselves about 10 more serfs, and we got ourselves like 15 or 20 commoners to play around with, and it looks like that did indeed unlock new buildings. So now we have a dairy farm which produces milk, and we have a cheese maker. We have a chedsmith. So we can get somebody out there and make them hammer the forges of the Gouda, which actually doesn't sound like too bad of an idea. I don't really have space for all that stuff, so we're going to have to figure out where we want to produce it. But at some point, we will have space for that stuff. And so I'm going to set this up for extraction over here just to get these trees out of the way. And then, honestly, I kind of feel like back on in here, once all the trees are cleared, is a really good idea. But I think my storage is full at the moment as far as wood goes. And I really don't have any way to get rid of the wood. I could empty out the stock for sure. Looks like we also got access to a weaver's hut, and we got access to a sheep farm, which sounds pretty nice. So we've got another production chain over here that we can play around with. I think I'm going to lean into that production chain. I think I'm okay with it. We can make a little sheep farm right here. I don't know how much, like, sheepage it's going to, like, supply us with, but I'm willing to give it a go. And so anyways, apparently the sheep farm does not want to be near housing. So maybe we'll put the sheep farm up here on the hill. Yeah, we'll put the sheep farm up here on the hill. Sounds good. Sheep it on up for me. Sheep it out. Sheepinate it. And then from there, do I need any other support buildings? We do have the weaver's hut, so I think it's not a bad idea to drop a weaver down in here. Maybe put the weaver right there. Oh, we need $100 to make a weaver. All right, we got to wait for tax revenue to come on in. And where does tax revenue come from? Well, tax revenue comes from anything that you're buying or selling. So basically, we stock all this food and we sell it in these markets. You actually have to set up what resources are going to be carried inside these markets. And people that are closest to it will go to that market in order to pick up the things they need in order to survive. Now, these guys have no access to comfort, which means they're kind of cranky about it. That probably means that we need to build more houses, and so we'll get to work on that. I think it's not too bad of an idea. We do still have a little bit of space over here, and it does look like they are building a home on that side as well. If you zoom all the way out, I very much like how in this game everything looks very organic. Like, the building of a city looks really, really good in this game just because it's not all grid-based. And the roads, I didn't build these roads. This is one of the special features that, in fact, I think this was one of the earlier indie games to have this. I remember it impressing me the first time I saw the game, but basically, wherever your people walk, roads will form. And if they don't walk in an area for a while, it'll get covered back up with grass, which means that naturally, over the passing of the years, you will see basically the road network and the little ant trails that control your entire village. They might remarkably and hugely change by like large amounts. But since we're still just waiting on money right now, we will go ahead and speed the game on up. I do have 6 villagers that are unemployed right now. We have 75 people living inside the city, so that's good. This storage is full, so we're going to need, actually, this warehouse is full, so we are going to need another warehouse. There's just no way around that. The warehouse is going to have to service this production chain on this side. Bringing over the wool to have the wool made into thread and then have the thread made into clothes is going to be a major thing, and we're not going to be able to find our way around that. So let's go back to our building menu, and we will make ourselves another warehouse over here. This also has a multiplicative value because, like, I want these trees to go away anyways. So, like, we can kill off some trees nice and easy peasy by getting rid of that. The building that is happening is being done by these little builder sheds over here that I kind of have, like, sprinkled around. I have a couple of them. There's like 2 or 3 around in the neighborhood. But anyways, a house is upgrading. Where's it upgrading at? I don't see an upgrade happening, but it says that there's an upgrade happening. One thing I would like to see is I would like to see them space the houses a little bit better. Sometimes the houses, they can clip. So depending on where you put your residential zones, occasionally houses will clip inside of one of the buildings that you placed. And the AI does that from time to time, and it can be a little bit of a headache. It's not like a massively enormous problem. We need to bring in another revenue stream. So I need to sell polished stone. We'll say everything over 50 gets sold when a caravan comes through. There's another military mission. Well, my entire military is already out on... They're already out and kind of doing their thing, so I hate to tell you, but I can't really do a whole lot for you right here. House is upgrading, looks good. Our balance roster is looking pretty bad right now. However, it should get better. I think miscellaneous costs are what's costing us right there. We'll continue chopping trees, and we'll see what happens with this stuff in just a minute. Oh, it is upgrading right here. They've actually put in like little stone facade walls. Very nice. Okay, so we've got some of the tier 3 houses rocking. Looks good to me. Looks fantastic. So what's on the roster for this game? Like, what things are coming out? Well, in the next patch, in 8.5, they're talking about these things called privileges and edicts and a number of other things that you can play around with, which basically markedly change the way that your city functions by nerfing certain stats to boost other stats. And basically, they're going to be tailored around your economy. Like, you can basically make an edict that says, like, yes, everyone's going to be less happy, but we're going to have way more output, which is not altogether, like, an uncommon thing for a game like this. But there are going to be some interesting things on in there. There's also privileges, which allow you to take advantage of certain chains in your village, and, like, productions that you can interact with. Looks like our balance roster is looking pretty good, and honestly, I'm pretty excited about the next patch. I don't always need combat in a game to enjoy myself, but in general, I personally don't tend to like city builders. Just not a big SimCity guy, but for whatever reason, with Foundation, I love this game. I just really, really like it. Our warehouse is done, so what we need to do is we need to assign some more transporters. So there we go. What these guys do is they're logistical workers. So this game doesn't have the problem that a lot of other logistical games have. Some logistical games, the guys that are chopping wood, for example, they will go chop wood, bring the wood back, then when the wood storage gets full, the woodworkers will take it off to the stockpile, then come back and resume their work cycle. In this game, they do that, tee-hee-doo-doo, but if you have logistical buildings and you've assigned them to be, like, stored inside of here, instead, these guys just work around the clock, and the guys that are responsible for storing that stuff, they will do it on their own, thus making you a little bit more efficient. And so I like that system very much. There's our sheep farm. We do need a shepherd, so that sounds good. And then we can spawn some sheepies in here. There's 2 little sheepies right there. I don't know if this is going to be like... So this has been the case for as long as I think this game has been out, where you spawn your own sheep, and then they just kind of graze around. I don't know if, like, in the end, there's going to be a change to that. You're going to have to import them through the trade roster or through the butcher's bill. I'm hoping that's the way that it eventually works, but that has not been the way that it has worked pretty much the entire life cycle duration of this game. You just click a button and you get free sheep and free cows, and then the game tells you, like, not to abuse it, basically, and I think they breed on their own, but I'm not, like, crazy sure about how that whole thing works. Either way, we now have thread coming on in, and so we'll want to set up a storage area for wool. We'll also want to set up a storage area for bolts of cloth. We'll want to have a storage area for clothing. And then we will also want to have a common storage area, I think, for more wood, in all honesty, because I have a lot of wood coming in. Like, actually, like a huge amount of wood, and it's getting in the way of people's ability to chop. And I need this area cleared out so we can just make this into good golden fields that we can harvest and continue to grow our city. So, like, sort of on the fence about that. We've got an envoy is here. What does the envoy want? He's right here. People are hungry. A sudden drought has caused a terrible shortage of food across the kingdom. There is simply not enough food to feed everyone. They need our help. We get $200 for it, but, like, they're asking for fish. And so I'm going to say no to the envoy because I don't really need reputation with any of the great houses. Everybody is more or less happy with me right now. We also need to finish that off right there while we begin to stockpile some of this thread. It looks like we have 6 thread right now, which is not very much. I kind of wish that we had more thread. Yeah, give me a few more sheepies. Since this system is obviously not fully fleshed out yet, I'm just going to try to get myself to a nice equilibrium as far as wool is concerned. And then once this building's done, we can start making bolts of cloth. And once we've got bolts of cloth, we can get a clothier or like a tailor. And then I think we'll be golden. Tailor, you can live right here. Enjoy your stay in my city. Wow, that's an impressive house right there. Yeah, as you can... Oh, well, maybe not. Yeah, as you can see, the corner of that awning right there clips it inside the building. So I think they might need to adjust a variable in the code that makes the buildings space themselves just like 2 feet further apart. Because sometimes you do end up with like a mishmash of sprawl. And I don't mind it being really, really tight. Like, fires were a problem in this time period because people tended to build really close to each other. But that having been said, I don't like to see the models clip on into each other either. It's one of those immersion-breaking things for me. It looks like we also have another new building. Oh, we got new decorative buildings. I can put in trees and stuff like that. I can also put in a very, very tasteful giant statue of a sheep. Because I guess that's what we're all about out here. Sure, I'm not against a giant, ridiculous statue of a sheep. That sounds pretty good. It's going to cost me 20 tools to build it, but I assume it's going to make this area a lot more desirable, and frankly, it's a giant stone sheep. It's a giant stone sheep with a gold plaque on it. I feel like every self-respecting Bohemian city should have that. That's like a definite... It's either that or, like, you know, statues of, like, mermaids or something. Or, like, old bronzed cannons that are sitting around somewhere to remind of ancient military victories and whatnot. I don't know. We just got 2 more villagers. Let's go ahead and we will set up the weavery. So there we go. And then we will set up the tailory as well. And now we have another production chain. We're going to need to sell that clothing, though, and there is simply no way around it. I've been wanting to redo this market over here, so I think I'm going to redo this market. Let's go ahead and redo this little market area. I think I can do better. I think I can make it more purtier. My ultimate goal is that I want to take this building right here, and I want to scooch it. I'm going to put my fortress, which is this building right here. I'm going to put my fortress up on top of this bluff for defensive purposes, just for RP reasons. And then I'm going to put my manor up here as well. And this is going to be like the noble quarter up here, basically. And it's going to be walled off from the rest of the city. And then we'll just have like a basic palisade that goes around the rest of it. And everybody else kind of lives in the valley with like the canneries and the fisheries and everything else. I think it's going to look pretty cool. I'm actually kind of excited about getting to that point in the game where I get to do that. One thing that bugs me is that it looks like you can't delete the village center. You place this within like the first 5 minutes of playing the game, and you can't get rid of it. Even if you get other storages, it doesn't seem to ever bulldoze. And I kind of wish that it could be bulldozed. Or at the bare minimum, that after like a certain amount of time surviving, it should just turn into like a statue or something, or like a fountain, and then stop storing goods, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't need you anymore. That was from back when we were like a loosely affiliated tribe. We're like a full-on city now. Let's go ahead and let's get these markets up and running because I wanted to show you the modularity system. So the market will be right here. And what we need is that we need good stalls and we need food stalls. Now, we have 3 types of food. The ball that you're seeing right there is where the seller stands. So we'll put one in right there. And then we'll put one in kind of like right here, I guess. Yeah, that looks okay to me. And so we've got fish, we've got bread, and we've got everything else taken care of. I'm going to add one more because I'm planning on getting the cheesery done so that I can sell cheeses for Jesus. And then I'm going to remove this well and put it someplace else. But we also need a good stall or 2. Now, I'm only producing like 1 good at the moment. But in the interest of future-proofing, I'm going to put in 2 so that I have more stuff to assign later on. So we'll put you kind of like right there. And what we should see is that the roads should kind of like close off around these areas, and this should get a lot more tight and good looking. It's going to take 60 wood and $100 to build all that. I'm okay with that expenditure. You guys get on in there and take care of business, and then we'll see what happens. What's missing? Raw materials? Oh, they haven't done all of the weaving yet. Because the deliveries hadn't been made. But as you can see, the game is animated very, very well. If we zoom all the way down in, you can see our little villager right here. She's actually working a loom, or like a spindle, or whatever, over on this side. I don't know what the difference between a loom and a spindle is. I don't know. I know that one of them puts princesses to sleep forever until you kill a dragon if she, like, bleeds on it. So maybe in the interest of keeping the princesses safe, I probably would get a loom instead. We still have this military mission. We could send the troops out. We'll get money. Yeah, send the troops on out. There's no point in leaving them idle. As you can see, they're sowing the fields over here. Just love how vibrant and alive this game feels. I think that's really like, there's always like a layer, I think, of conceptualization and gamifying that goes into like a city building game. So if you play something like Cities Skylines, there's obviously like one car for like every like 400 or 500 citizens, you know what I mean? And even then, the traffic still backs up like crazy because everybody's got to go to work and everybody's got to like do their thing. What I like about this game is that there's not really a lot of that. Like, somebody has to go out and sow the fields. Somebody has to turn the loom. Somebody has to chop the wood. And if you follow the workers around as you're playing the game, you can watch them go about their daily routine, each and every one of them. Like, every single one of these 81 people in my town has a daily routine that they are participating in. And I think it makes the game feel it makes the game feel very, very alive, I guess. It makes the game feel as though things are happening, and not just in, like, a vacuum, you know? Like, it makes the game feel functional at a logistics and at, like, a crafting level, I suppose. And it makes it jump out to the eye. Like, I catch myself all the time missing little notifications down here in the bottom left as I'm playing the game because I'm just, like, watching stuff happen. I'm watching them load crates down at the dock. Things of that nature. And I don't know why. It captures my attention so aggressively, but it does. Let's go ahead and assign the stuff for redistribution down here, because people are going to start to get hungry. As you can see, our balance right now is dropping precipitously because we're not really selling anything. However, we do have 8 shirts, which is rad. The real question is whether or not we're going to be charging them supreme prices, or if we're making, like, them basic Hanes prices. You know what I mean? Like, I personally, in real life, I don't wear, like, any branded clothing if I can help it. I basically wear plain white tees and, like, jeans that don't have the actual brand on it. I don't like being an advertising block for giant corporations. I don't know. We'll go ahead and assign who we can here. And I think we have just enough to sell shirts on that side. And so we'll get the shirts ready to go, too. And the shirts should bring in a decent amount of money, as far as I know. If I find that I've actually supplied myself with too many sheep, in the interest of fair play, I'll probably delete a couple. If I end up stacking, like, ridiculous quantities of wool. Oh, they already sold all 20 shirts? Oh, no, they didn't. They're transferring them right now. They should show up again in the stockpile when the shirts are delivered to one of the shops. Yeah, there she goes. Perfect. It does look like people are buying the shirts, though. Yeah, actually. The shirts are worth $10 a piece, too, which is pretty good. We need to think about... So our balance is not great right now. But what we do need to think about is we need to think about the possibility. I need to move this wood chopper first and foremost. So we'll do that. I need this wood chopper to be closer to the trees that I'm chopping so that we can wipe out this area. And I need to make like a new residential district, basically. Although I suppose I could put it down here and we could chop out all these trees and continue this kind of like down the beach thing that we're doing that makes it look kind of like a Monterey style like seaside city. Might be kind of cool. Might be interesting. But yeah, when I was building this market over here, you can edit it after the fact too. You can look at all the parts and what they're assigned to. You can edit it and you can add stuff to it, which will give you prestige. So if you have linens and things of that nature, you can build tents and stuff to actually make this look more decorative. You can put up signs. You can put up fences to kind of like direct traffic. You can put little barrels and things in here in the center of town to make it look a little bit more lived in and give it kind of like a Tortuga vibe from Pirates of the Caribbean. But anyways, lots of decorative things you can do in this game. And in fact, the snap-in system, it all works very, very well. It's actually very satisfying to play around with. I think we probably still have room up here to get another supply chain to make that cheese. These guys actually didn't use up that much space. And so let's take a look at our food stocks. It looks like we can get a dairy farm. That's going to be outside of our territory, though. I'm going to put the dairy farm. Yeah, dairy farms smell terrible. There's a lot of dairy farms kind of like south of where I live, and they smell god-awful. So I could understand on that case why people don't want to live next to a dairy farm. That actually makes a huge amount of sense to me. I don't know where the entrance to this building is. I'm assuming that that's the front barn door right there. Yeah, go ahead and do it. We'll get that started. And then a cheese maker was the next thing that I had on my mind. With my mind on my queso and my queso on my mind. Erect. A noble cheesemaker. You will occupy a place of honor. Right here. I build you. We also have promotions available, so we're going to want to spend some money on that just to unlock new buildings. I'm not going to go crazy with the promotions, but I am going to promote some people, and it does look like we unlocked some more things. So we got the cooperage. That allows us to make barrels, which is pretty cool. We don't have the glass smelter yet, but we did get a blacksmith, an iron smelter. It looks like for food, we got a hop farm. Oh, we can produce beer, which implies that we're moving towards taverns. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. It looks like goldsmithing is in here. Silversmithing may be in here. Candle shops. Okay. And if you're ever wondering what people want, you just mouse over this right here and it'll tell you. Do they want goods? Do they want housing? What do they want? You can find out very, very easily. I might start dedicating some of this. I'd really like to chop out a few more of these trees first, though. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and put this over here. In fact, if I can kill off some trees, I'm not even building for the wood right now. I'm building purely for just wanting this open space. We can only build inside the yellow lines. If you want to expand your territory, you click on this little flag right here. And if you have enough money, you can buy it, but it will make your daily upkeep much, much higher. So it basically gives you like a -10 to this number on your daily upkeep. So keep that in mind, too. It's very, very easy to bankrupt yourself if you're not careful. Have I gotten any tech that I can get? I've got 20 commoners, but it wants me to have more splendor for my kingdom. How do I get splendor? I get splendor by making the buildings that represent these aspects more awesome. So we get splendor, for example, by making our church more rad for the clergy. We get splendor with the king by making, I think, our fort nicer and have like banners and training dummies and things of that nature. And then I think the populace becomes happier the more opulent and rad my mansion is. I don't know why my property value affects their ability to be happy, but it just does, and I don't question it because I don't like being strung out and murdered and guillotined. I do have enough to open up a new diplomatic relationship as well with one of my neighbors. I should probably do that before they sell off the shirts. So it looks like I can unlock this trade route for 20 breads. And we do have actually funny meme number of breads. So that'll work out. And that will allow me to sell my fish. It'll allow me to sell my clothing. And it'll allow me to buy weapons. And it'll allow me to buy grapes, apparently. So I guess vineyards are in the game as well. We'll go ahead and unlock that trade route for right now. And then for whatever reason, this trade route doesn't want to open up. I would hope that it would at some point, but it hasn't yet. But I do have the 20 clothing. Well, I had the 20 clothing. So maybe I have to be on better terms with the clergy before that's going to work out. Either way, we're in pretty decent shape right now, and we're pretty much maxed out on cash. I do need to I need to rebuild my manor elsewhere. But I'm kind of waiting until I claim all this territory up here because I want the next rebuild to be the last one. So that's sort of life. But our houses are upgrading very much to like the Middle Ages right now, like the late Middle Ages, actually. They're starting to look good. They're starting to have plaster walls. They're starting to have little storage sheds outside. They're starting to have little chicken coops and dog houses and things because obviously every self-respecting city needs to have an overabundance of man's best friend. I have several of them. I love my dogs. My dogs are awesome. The lumber camp is rebuilt over here, so we will want to repaint the extraction zone. God, that's a lot of forest that I've killed off, and I don't even feel guilty about it. We just need room for humans over here. We're going to actually force them to hyper-focus on, like, this area along the border. There we go. Perfect. I love painting in this game. I don't know why, but it's like popping bubble wrap. It just makes you feel good. But anyways, Foundation. This has been a checkup on the game, and I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's great. I can't wait to play it more. I was playing it today to get ready for this video, and a little bit last night to get ready for this video. And, like, sometimes, you know, you don't feel like playing a game. Wasn't super in the mood for Foundation, but after I sat down and started playing for, like, 20 minutes, I got sucked back in, and the entire night disappeared. And that's a really, really good sign, is that, like, even when you're kind of, like, on break from a game, you go back to it and start playing it a little bit, it sucks you back in. I feel like that's a good sign. But, like, here's my thoughts about Foundation. Yeah, I largely, as you may have guessed, actually haven't really had any problems with Foundation. I think the game's great. The development cycle's a tiny bit slow from going back through, like, their patch logs and whatnot. But that's more of a potential purchaser thing that you should be appraised of rather than a slight against the game, considering that the content that they do put out, it tends to be pretty polished and functioning very, very well. It seems to be developed by a team that's quite fastidious about putting out something that works, and so they take the extra time to get it done right. The game does have some performance issues as your colony gets larger from what I've seen so far, but it isn't massive chugs. It's kind of like a nice, smooth, even nominal loss in frame rate. So it's not like hangs and like pops back in. It's just like you lose like 2 frames here, 2 frames there from what happened to me. And honestly, my hardware is getting a little bit older. Like I've had this computer now for like 5 or 6 years just due to like electronics prices going nuts. I probably should have replaced it already considering what I do for a living, but it's just so expensive. It's so pricey. Home placement, it can sometimes be a little bit tight like I talked about earlier in the video. I've caught myself deleting villagers' houses manually a lot to force a rebuild in a way that I like it to look, basically, because there's like a clipping fence or like a wall that bugged me. But by and large, it's not a huge irritation. I'd like it if the game had a pop-up at the end of each month as well. I frequently miss out on my 6-day citizen upgrade window because I'm zoned out like working on logistical supply chains or like beautifying the place. And I do enjoy going through my financials and doing my upgrades every month, which is like every hour or so of gameplay. That option may already exist, though, in the options. But I missed probably 2 or 3 months worth of promotions so far on my villagers on this playthrough alone, just like missing the text prompt pop-up while I'm fiddling with other stuff that's kind of like absorbing my attention. And so something that fully pauses the game and then like a nice, you know, I guess filigreed or like decorative window pops up and it's like, my lord, your monthly report. And then like you go through and check all your balances and like what's red and what's black. And then you can go through and do your promotions after you close that window. That would actually make me miss a lot less promotions because I'm easily distracted. Honestly, really, all I feel like the game needs is more stuff, and that's not like a critique of the game. As of right now, with the early access, I think I'm probably about halfway through the production and like the buildings and everything else at about 7 hours of playing the game on ×2. So, like, you know, I figure you probably get double-digit play times out of the current early access if you're only interested in unlocking new things and building new buildings and you don't want to make new maps or whatever else. That's probably where I'd estimate it's at, but I can't say conclusively. But yeah, Outside of the few tiny little things, the game sounds great, it plays great, it's well animated, it's by and large one of the more enjoyable city builders, colony survival games that I've played. It nestles in for me right in the sweet spot of like casual versus depth and crunch, which is rare, and that's actually one of the main reasons I don't really play city builders, is like either they're too complicated and they turn into like a grindy, sort of crunchy job where I'm constantly fiddling with things and I spend more time looking at balance sheets than I do actually playing the game, or they have like a very, very slick veneer, but they have like that mobile game level of depth and I bounce right off of it and get bored. So Foundation is honestly one of my favorites. I'm really hoping the game gets a ton of success. I hope like after it gets to 1.0, because it's going into 8.5 pretty soon. Once it gets into 1.0, I hope it gets lots of DLC support. I hope it sells lots of copies. I hope it gets a lot of expansions, because honestly, I could see this kind of being that one city builder colony survival game for me personally. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so you don't have to. Today we're checking out the Foundation. Tomorrow we'll be doing something else. Thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.